Show on the road. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another exciting week in space. I am your weekly wizard, your host with the most, Joan Emerson Bell, astrologer, tarot reader, licensed mental health counselor, astrological coach, and I don't know, astrology themed radio DJ and internet personality. That's me. And I'm here because it's Monday, and every Monday, I like to do a rundown of all the astrology that's going down in space. Thank you all for tuning in. Good morning, Gina Maria. I apologize for running a little late today. I'm traveling and trying to live my big life. And, sometimes big life gets kind of big, and we kind of, get a little behind. But anyway, I'm here. We're doing this. We're making it happen. I appreciate your attention and showing up. Thanks for tuning in. Yeah, what was I going to say? Oh, yeah, along the lines of living a big life, I have been slacking on my astrology themed radio show, The Melee Report, and some of my Patreon contributions, and I apologize for that. I'm trying to take some vacation time because I've been working really hard for a long time. And, even wizards need a break once in a while. So, thank you for bearing with me while I try and enjoy myself for a little while and get away from my computer and the social media. But I got things brewing, and I'm not going to abandon you. Don't worry. It just might take me a minute to refill my cup, which I'm working at. So before we get started, just a couple of announcements. Let's see here. I will be co-facilitating a week-long Dreaming Waters retreat in Epidavros, Greece, with the author and dream worker and very brilliant mythologist Sarah Janes. This is going down at the end of September. The retreat will be focused on dreams, sacred waters, and mythology, and it runs from September the 20th to September the 27th. So just in time for the autumnal equinox. We'll be talking about the water signs in the astrological chart, visiting sacred sites around Greece, doing a bunch of magic, doing a bunch of dream work. Really exciting stuff. We're going to have some special guests on this retreat. And yeah, I hope that you can join us. Space is kind of limited, so check out the website. It is the dreamingmysteries.org and go to the retreats tab to check it out. And yeah, I hope to see you there because it's going to be a blast, and I'm really looking forward to it. The second little announcement that I would like to make is my dear friend Mariee Siou, very talented musician, will be playing at the fabulous Lost and Found Vintage in Nevada City, California on Friday, July 5th or Saturday, July 6th. There are going to be some great shows. And yeah, if you happen to be in Nevada County or Northern California or anywhere around there, I highly recommend going to check out Mariee Siou. Her music is beautiful. And yeah, congratulations, Mariee and Davis, on getting hitched this weekend. I'm really happy for y'all. And also, Lost and Found Vintage, if you don't know, has some amazing vintage gear, and I highly recommend checking them out. I actually got this jacket from them the other day, and it is looking fly, if I do say so myself. So, big shout out to Jesse Brown and Micah D, who run that little oasis of fashion. So that is all the announcements that I have to start us off. And welcome on in, everybody. Hello. And yeah, let's jump into the astrology of the week. So we are looking at this week in space for the week of June 30th, 2025 to July the 6th. Glitched out there for a second, 2025. So we got kind of a light week, not much going on for the first part, but it starts kicking in on the 4th of July, oddly enough. And we are getting a bunch of Venusian transits this week, which I think is kind of a good thing because I think we could use a little bit more love, a little bit more Venus in the world. One of my favorite astrologers, Carolyn Casey, in this excellent book she wrote called Making the Gods Work for You, was talking about how the problems of the modern world boil down to being some Venusian problems. And that problem being there isn't enough Venus in the world, right? If you look around, there's like strip malls, like things look ugly, things look gray. The sort of ornamentation has been stripped down, and it's this kind of mass consumption, mass culture. Everything fits into boxes with rounded edges, and there's not that sort of like juicy Venusian flavor, which makes life worth living. And, especially in lower income areas, right? Like all the Venus is stripped away. And so if you're living in a world where you don't have access to beauty, it does real harm to our souls. It does real harm to our relationships, right? And these relationships and that sort of like joy and pleasure and the soul of life that Venus really celebrates gets sort of repressed. And so I think being able to touch into Venus in ourselves and in the world and create a little Venusian touches, right, of pleasure, of beauty, of joy, of relationship, of celebration, and celebrating these things, I think is really important. And so this week we're getting all of these Venus transits happening, which hopefully reminds us a little bit of the beauty of life and the importance of relationship, the importance of beauty, the importance of creativity, and the ways that we are able to share that with each other. So, kicking it off, America's birthday, Friday, July the 4th. We have Venus in Taurus conjunct Uranus, or Uranus in Taurus, at the spooky old anaretic degree of that fixed Earth sign. This conjunction occurring at 29 degrees and 52 arc minutes, which is right at the very edge of the Venus ruled sign of Taurus. So, right here on Friday, America's birthday, Uranus, planet of revolution and liberation, meets up with Venus, the ruler of Taurus, which Taurus is the sign that Uranus has been moving through since March of 2019. Kind of a long time. Can you remember back to March of 2019? Feels like 6 lifetimes ago. That is like a prequel. That's like 2 prequels ago. And so this is occurring at the very last degree in the like last 8 minutes of Taurus, right? Which is a fixed Earth sign. And the last degree of a sign is called the anaretic degree, right? And it feels pretty haunted. All the lessons and experiences that a planet has been going through over whatever the time it has been in the sign gets kind of like packed into this anaretic degree, into this last degree, into this threshold moment, right? And that planet, in this case, Uranus, is looking back from this last degree and reviewing the experiences and lessons and the events that have unfolded during their stay in this sign, and in this case, Taurus, right? And simultaneously, they are looking forward to the unknown, the new adventure in the sign that they are about to enter, which in this case would be Gemini. And this is going to occur, I believe, next Monday on July the 7th. Right. So this anaretic degree, this last degree, is both a time of reflection and anticipation. Right. The energy of the last degree can feel pretty like fraught and intense because it's packed with all this anxiety of moving on and leaving what's familiar, as well as like stepping into the unknown territory of whatever comes next. And to me, it feels kind of auspicious for Uranus to be meeting up with Venus here at the very edge of Venus's sign of Taurus. And I think about this as like Uranus doing kind of like a final inspection with their landlord, right? Going over the past 6 years and reviewing the breakage and the breakthroughs and the lessons and the ways that they grew before like returning the keys to Venus, right? And shaking hands. and moving on into their next department in the very information heavy land of Gemini, where they will practice their art of liberation and breakthrough in totally new ways. And we'll be talking more about this in next week's episode because Uranus will be entering the mutable air sign of Gemini on the 7th. And so let's talk about this relationship of, well, Uranus's journey through Taurus a little bit, as well as Uranus and Venus meeting at this last and haunted degree. So Uranus is a sky god. And in the origin story of the Greek cosmology, Uranus is married to, or Uranus, as they say, is married to Gaia, the Earth, right? And so we begin our tale with the sky and the Earth in a holy union, right? And in the beginning, the sky and the Earth, Uranus and Gaia, were like wrapped together in a deep and passionate embrace, right? And they held tightly together. And in this passionate embrace, as sometimes happens in an embrace of this fashion, they start producing children through their union. However, the children that are created through the meeting and the hugging and holding of the sky and the earth, Uranus and Gaia, the children that are produced from this union never really lived up to Uranus's standards. And he kept shoving them back into the belly of Gaia. He was like, "This little freak? Oh, hell no," and pushes it back into Gaia. And this happens over and over and over again. And Gaia's like, "Hold up, bro. Like, this is deeply uncomfortable. Like, I'm not okay with this. This needs to stop." Right. And so Gaia talks to her youngest son, the Titan Kronos or Saturn, right, and gives him a sickle with which Saturn emerges and grabs his dad, Uranus, by the junk and cuts it off and flings it into the ocean. And as soon as Uranus's bits and bobs hit the water, it begins to foam and bubble. And Venus was born from the castration foam into that image that we all know so well from posters and postcards and shower curtains of Aphrodite, Venus emerging on a clamshell. And so this myth tells us a lot about the archetypes of Uranus or Uranus and Venus, as well as their relationship with each other. So first off, Uranus, as a sky god, is really focused on the ideal and rejects anything that doesn't live up to their vision of the ideal, right? All of these children that were not perfect to him, not exactly what he wanted, he's like, "Oh, I'm having nothing to do with this," and shoves them back into the earth, right? Into the unconscious, into the deep down, right? Uranus refuses to love his creations because they don't live up to these exacting standards of how things should be or what he really wants. And so when we get this Uranus-Venus conjunction, it can kind of replicate this. And I think that this is something that Uranus does over and over and over again as they move through different areas of our own chart and the world chart, right? Or the sky around us. Uranus might feel like right, relationships or Uranus in relationship with Venus, right, in this conjunction where these energies kind of merge, right? Uranus might feel like a relationship or a sensual or aesthetic experience isn't good enough, right? It doesn't live up to what I want or what I think I want. It can give us this kind of like grass is greener type of vibe, you know? The idealism of Uranus can lead us to a state of craving, which is the belief that the next thing is better than this. It pulls us out of our present moment experience and it tells the story that there is something else or something better, that the next thing is what's really going to do it for me, right? And this can really pull us away from our felt sense of the now and keep us in a perpetual state of longing and dissatisfaction. It can tell us that whatever we have is not good enough. And with the Venus conjunction, this can lead us to believe that the Venusian elements of our lives, like creativity, beauty, art, love, relationships, connections, are not really sufficient, and that there is another artwork or creative process or relationship or article of clothing or partner or product that is better. And if we can only just find that person or buy that product or make that artwork or perform that piece with more skill and more ease, then we would feel better. Right? Anyone ever get that vibe? Anyone ever feel that? I know I do. Right? And on one level, this experience of striving, right, towards that ideal can push us to be free of stagnant situations and limiting beliefs. It can keep us sort of moving towards our bigger and better goals, right? Ideals give us something to work towards, and they provide an orientation point for something that we can really strive for. However, the idealism that Uranus brings can also keep us small, right? And cause us to reject what we have in the present in favor of some unattainable or imaginary or impossible goal, right? Remember, you're on a sky god, right? All imagination, right? Not really interested in the physical reality of what they have, right? They were always like, oh, but it could be better. Like in my mind, it's perfect, right? And I think that part of Uranus's lesson in Taurus is learning to appreciate the now and the simple joys and pleasures that are available to us in this present moment. Right? Taurus is a Venus ruled sign, which is about being like, oh, I like this. I want more of this. Right. And again, the I want more of this can lead us to craving, oh, this isn't enough. But when we tune in, and we're like, oh, this is good. I like this. What is it like to really feel into this? What is it like to really appreciate this? I think that also brings the Uranian liberation and revolution, right? Because instead of being like, oh, I'm in a perpetual state of longing and needing something next or needing something else or needing something different, it allows us to really sink into the present and really appreciate the sort of gifts and gold and joy that we get to experience through these sensory organs, these kind of spacesuits, right? These biological, beautiful spacesuits that we get to live in and through that allow us to be on this beautiful planet, right? And I think, you know, another thing that Uranus and Taurus has been doing is kind of upending our stability. And I think it's really important to appreciate what we have and what we're working with in the present moment as like the world keeps shifting and turning. Uranus and Taurus is kind of like an earthquake, right? Disrupting the stability and the value systems that we are living in. Again, Taurus is a fixed earth sign, so it's like, oh, I'm holding it down. And Uranus is like, oh, you think so? And blows it up, right? And, since Uranus entered Taurus in 2019, we've gone through a global pandemic, a stock market crash, the end of Roe versus Wade in America, the Black Lives Matter movement, the introduction of AI and machine learning, second Trump administration. I don't know why. The rise of fascism, another stock market crash, the rise of authoritarianism worldwide, and a live streaming of genocide, and the possible start of World War III. And that's just a few of the things that I could pull together late night as I was writing this. And as we live through all of these seismic shifts, it becomes really hard to maintain a sense of stability or to rely on the things that we value and that we have held on to in the past. And I think part of what Uranus in this Venus ruled sign is teaching us is to be present and to really enjoy this moment without rejecting it for some ideal of what might be better or some idealized past. Right? It also teaches us not to become complacent and cling to the things that we find stability in or what we perceive as the best we can do. Because the earthquake that Uranus has created in Taurus is challenging the ideals and ideas of what is worth holding on to. And Gina Maria is saying, I've heard them called meat suits. And I don't like meat suit. I think that's like a little derogatory because I think being in a body is like such an amazing gift. And I think just like thinking about it as like, oh, this is this like, inanimate thing that my spirit is animating. I think that we're in co-relationship and co-creation with our bodies. And these are these amazing instruments that allow us to take in and experience life and joy and pleasure and pain and all of the myriad sort of sensory experiences that we get to participate in this life. So coming back to the myth, Venus is born from Uranus's dismembered junk that is tossed willy-nilly into the ocean, right? Uranus's junk, right, is the generative and creative capacity. So Venus, the goddess of love and beauty, is born from this cosmic creative force. When Venus and Uranus come together, there is the reminder of the power of creativity to make what is beautiful and pleasing in the world. In these unstable and shifting times, right, the relationship of Venus and Uranus reminds us of our own creative potential, our own ability to create our ideal through these bodies, through these hands, right, through our imagination, through our visions, through our aesthetic sensibilities, right? And it also reminds us that how we love and what we love can really support and help to direct that creative energy into our lives and into this world. And so Uranus is also associated with the Titan Prometheus, who stole the solar fire from the gods and brought it to humanity. Prometheus was a revolutionary, maybe one of the first revolutionaries, who broke away from the Olympians and disobeyed Zeus in order to liberate humanity so we could grow to our full potential. There is that Uranian ideal again, right? Oh, I've made humans, right? And they have all this potential, but they're stuck in this sort of stagnant place where they're just like eating sticks and like raw meat and it's gross, right? But if they had fire, then they could really grow into, making the internet and creating memes to be shared through the DM. Right? And I want to see that happen. So Prometheus steals fire in a fennel stalk and brings it to us. Right? So Uranus, in relationship to Prometheus, is seen as a planet of liberation and revolution, who helps us to break out of these stagnant systems so that we can come into a deeper sense of authenticity and to feel a little bit more free. Uranus is seen as a revolutionary archetype who creates breakdowns, which facilitate breakthroughs. And as Uranus and Venus form this conjunction at the very last degree, in the very last minutes of Taurus, I want to kind of reiterate something that I've said before. The revolution is Venusian, right? This is an opportunity to think about a revolution of love and of beauty. And as we, well, excuse me, I lost my notes app again. Sometimes it's so annoying. And as I quit this and restart it and try and get back to my place, right, we can think about what a Venusian revolution might look like for us, right? This revolution of creativity and beauty, as opposed to sort of bending to the fascist ideals of very limited creativity where our love is all directed towards the leader or the state, which I'm not okay with. I'm not down with that. And I think that this is very fitting that this conjunction is occurring on the 4th of July, which is a big time of patriotism and celebrating America. And I think that there are a lot of things to celebrate about America, and I think a lot of those things have been kind of pushed aside as there is a increasing desire for oppression and control that is sort of superseding the kind of beautiful Venusian creative innovative energy that are some of the things that really make America great. And I say that not as a reference to MAGA, which whatever, but I think that I don't know, I was born here and I love this country because this is my home. This is the only home that I've ever known. And I've traveled far and wide, and I always come back here because I don't know, it's a part of me and I'm a part of it. And, I was traveling a long time ago. This was when Bush 2 won his first election. And I was in Amsterdam talking to a friend of mine, this elder gentleman, Gary Cousins. And I was like, hell no, I'm not going back to America. And he sat me down and he was like, look, bro, if all the good people leave, who's left to fight the fight? Right. And that kind of stuck with me. And I think that's important. Right. So coming back to this Venusian revolution, right? This is an opportunity to think about a revolution based in an ethic of love and an ideal of beauty, right? As well as practicing revolutionary values, and Venus is a planet of values. And this can be the values of liberation, which I support, right? And the values of equality among all people, right? And the values of supporting what we find beautiful. And this includes all sentient beings, right? And I think part of a Venusian revolution is also feeling free enough to live your life by your authentic value system, independent of what society or your parents or other Saturnian authority figures say. Right? And on one level, a Venusian revolution is fundamentally opposed to fascism because fascism has a very limited and cold aesthetic. Right? And this has always been the case. It seeks to suppress individual creativity and usurp individual love and direct it towards the love of the leader, the state, the party, the homeland, whatever, all that bullshit, right? And to love freely and to love who and what you choose is an act of rebellion. And I think this is, at the core of liberation. The more we can each tune into what we love and express our love and creative energy with each other and in the world, the less mental and emotional power the elements of control have over us. This is what I mean by Venusian revolution. And it seems like at this last degree of Taurus, as Venus and Uranus are coming together for this one farewell kiss, this is an opportunity to come into relationship with the desires and pleasures and aesthetics and creative experiences that help us to come into better alignment with ourselves and help us to tune into our core value system, right? For me, part of that core value is what Bell Hooks talks about as an ethic of love. And I think this breaks down to treating others the way that we want to be treated, right? And to sharing compassion and kindness and care and creativity with those around us and supporting people who are more vulnerable than us and raising people up instead of trying to tear people down or exile them, right? And this is a revolutionary act. And this conjunction helps us to review what feels valuable in a shifting world. And what ideals and values do we want to keep striving for while being able to accept, enjoy, relish, and love the joys and experiences that are present to us and available in this moment, right? I don't think that we can kick those out of bed and being like, oh, it's not good enough, right? Or like, I can't experience pleasure because there is suffering in the world. And there's a hell of a lot of suffering in the world, but there's always suffering in the world. That's part of what being in the world is about. There is always suffering somewhere, right? And we are always moving in and out of states of discontent and suffering. And when we get that ability to experience joy and pleasure, this is really important. And we shouldn't deny that because there is still pain, right? And it's actually the experience of those joys and pleasures that make the pain more bearable. And I think that we are all connected, right, through the sort of mycelia of life, through the not just the web of the internet, but the web of life, right? And when one of us gets to experience pleasure and joy, I think that ripples out, right? And it doesn't necessarily alleviate all of the suffering in the world, but I think that denying joy and pleasure does everyone a disservice. And I think that is the suffering, right, or the pain that we experience that helps carve the cup that allows us to hold more joy, right? And I don't think that we should go into straight up hedonism or ignoring the realities of a very challenging world that we are living in during these times, right? But we can hold both things. And I'll get to that in a minute because Venus, after this conjunction, is going to move into Gemini, a planet of multiplicity, right? And so even with the fear and instability of this rapidly shifting world, right, we can consider the fire that Prometheus brings to Earth and the fennel stalk as something that can illuminate and even kindle and ideally inflame in a good way the Venusian parts of us, the parts that really appreciate beauty, the parts that want to live fully, and the parts that love fiercely. And I think this, my friends, is a truly revolutionary act. So also on America's birthday, July the 4th, Venus will enter Gemini right after this conjunction. This occurs like 3 hours after Venus and Uranus meet up. So Venus will now be leaving Taurus, the sign of Venus's rulership. And Venus has been moving through her earthly domicile since June the 5th, which has been a great time, by the by. I don't know if y'all have been feeling it, but I've been having a blast with Venus and Taurus. Right? And I think Venus and Taurus has been awakening the sensual in the world and inside of us. Venus loves good smells, nice fabrics, delicious food, pleasant lighting, good company, good times, right? Venus and since Venus entered Taurus, I've been really enjoying roses and flowers that are all in bloom around where I live, right? The rose is a flower associated with Venus, and their smell and texture and beautiful appearance is a very Venusian thing, right? And so, before Friday, July the 4th, go out and smell the roses. Like really take it in. Really appreciate that Venus and Taurus energy. Right. And I think that things like smelling flowers and enjoying the simple pleasures of life is very on brand with Venus and Taurus. This also might have been a time for us to really tune in and really center our values, really considering what we value for ourselves and in our lives. Time to think about what we like and also what we dislike, what we are attracted to and what we are repulsed by. This sort of shapes our value system. And as we have been coming into alignment with our values, we can consider how we can get more of what we like, what we find beautiful and pleasant in our lives, and how we can have less of what we don't want. Now that Venus had an opportunity to tune into these values, they are bringing this information into Gemini, which is a Mercury-ruled air sign, where Venus has the opportunity to share what they have learned about what feels good and what brings pleasure. Right? In the Golden Dawn interpretation of the tarot, Gemini is associated with the Lovers card. The Lovers is something that Venus loves. Right? And if we think about Venus tuning into and strengthening their idea of values in Taurus, then when they enter Gemini, they get an opportunity to really apply that to their relationships. Gemini is all about information and communication. And as Venus moves into this mutable air sign, they get to gather more information about what feels good. And they get a chance to kind of communicate that and share that with the people that we're in relationships with, the people, and I'm talking like intimate relationships, but also, friendships, social relationships, right? No hierarchy on that, right? But Venus like enters Gemini and is like, oh my God, like taste this. This tastes so good. What do you think about it? And we get that information back. Oh my God, I just saw this beautiful artwork. Do you want to come see it with me? Oh, read this poem. Let me read it to you. What do you think about that? Right? And think about Gemini's association with the Lover's card is all about learning to share our values, right? Our pleasures, our desires, and joys with the people that we are connected with. And these people then provide us with feedback that helps us to better understand ourselves, right? And relationship is both a mirror and a container for growth. And it's one thing to recognize the things that we value and what we like and what we don't like. And it's another thing entirely to share that with somebody else and to express our values and desires or needs to other people. The other person, right, or other people help to provide feedback, which can either strengthen our values, right, or they can cause us to abandon our values in order to fit in or be liked or feel accepted. Either way, relationships of all sorts provide us with valuable information about who we are, who we can be, what we desire, what our ideal is. I think learning to communicate about what we love and what feels good, or even what we think might feel good, as well as what doesn't feel good and what our boundaries are, is a really important function of Venus and Gemini. And this is not an easy thing to do, right? It can feel really vulnerable to be like, hey, I like this, or oh, I'm not okay with that, right? That like opens us up. And, yeah, and I think that being able to set boundaries can be really vulnerable and threatening, as well as like asking for our needs to be met. And I think that this is some of the wisdom of Venus and Gemini, right? We get to learn that people aren't mind readers. And oftentimes, to get our needs met or to maintain our boundaries, we need to be able to ask for what we want and let others know what we don't want. And getting to share these values with others and to be in communication with others helps us to both integrate our learnings from Venus and Taurus about what feels good and generative, and it helps us to have more of what we want. And it also gives us really valuable feedback and information from other people about what works and what doesn't, right? For them, as well as it gives us new information about what brings them joy and what their values are, which we can also integrate into our own lives and into the ways that we relate with other people around us. Because I think Venus and Taurus was like, oh, this is what feels good to me, right? And then we come into Venus and Gemini, and it's like, this is what feels good to me. And somebody else is like, well, that doesn't really feel great to me, but this feels good to me. And it's like, oh, I never thought of that. All right, let me try that. Let me like try that new flavor. Oh, let me like smell that new smell, right? Let me try that new dance. Let me like watch that different art film, right? And this helps expand our capacity to take in beauty, to experience joy, right? And it helps us evolve our value system, which I think is incredibly important, right? Because when it's just in a hermetically sealed box, then we kind of miss out on other things that can bring pleasure and joy, right? And you might find new foods or new information or new experiences that really help you to grow. And so, moving along to also Friday, July the 4th, we have Neptune's retrograde station. This is occurring at 2 degrees and 10 arc minutes of Aries, the cardinal fire sign. And so I'm not going to dwell too long on this, but let me just give you a couple dates. So Neptune is retrograde in Aries and then in Pisces until December the 10th of 2025. So basically for the rest of the year. Neptune will retrograde back into Pisces in October. I actually forgot to put the date. I think it's October 10th. Neptune will station direct at 29 degrees and 22 arc minutes of Pisces, that anaretic degree again. Oh, and Art of Loving saying, yes, my partner is Venus and Gemini. So you know what I'm talking about, right? They're probably always like, oh, I like this. Check this out. Check this out. Check this out, which can really help us to evolve our value system and tune us into more things that we like. And I think it's great to have more stuff that we like and more things to choose from. And Venus and Gemini really likes that. Thanks for putting that in the chat. So anyway, Neptune stations direct at the anaretic degree of Pisces in October, someday in October. And then Neptune will re-enter Aries on January 26th of 2026 and stay there all the way until May 21st of 2038. And then Neptune will perfect their conjunction with Saturn on, I believe, February the 20th. And so I think about Neptune like the motion of the ocean, right? They're sort of a wave that crashes and then recedes and crashes and then recedes. And I think that this is the direct motion of Neptune, right? This wave like rolling in. And then the retrograde motion is that receding, right? Being pulled back into the sea, or the tides receding, right? And as that wave pulls back or that tide pulls back, it reveals all of these like polished stones and beach glass and treasures and trash. right? All the things that the Sea of Neptune has been tossing and tumbling. And this last wave has been an intense one, right? Neptune has changed signs into Aries where it hasn't been since the late 1860s or early 1860s, about the time that the US Civil War started, right? And now we're experiencing that again, not the necessarily the US Civil War, but the energy of Neptune and Aries. And so this has been like this wave crashing, which has felt pretty intense since they entered into the cardinal fire sign of Aries, right? And now they're receding a little bit and sort of revealing maybe, okay, this is the energy, this is the vibe, this is what's coming up, this is what's being dissolved, right? Neptune dissolves, right? It dissipates, it dilutes. And I think part of the way that it does this is by this crashing and receding and crashing and receding, right? And just like over time, just dissolving through the energy of water, continuing to sort of break down the structures and the forms of reality, which is uncomfortable, right? But I'll leave it there and move along to Sunday, July the 6th, and the last two transits that we'll be talking about. And this might be a short one this week because I don't know, you got things to do, I got things to do. It's a busy life. We're in the sort of height of summer. There's a lot of energy and activation going on. And I want you all to be able to get out there and play and not just be glued to this guy on his screen, right? So Sunday, July 6th, we have Venus in Gemini, sextile Saturn in Aries. This is going down at 1 degree and 53 arc minutes. So as Venus enters Gemini, right, they follow the path laid out last week by the Sun and Mercury, who both came into contact, Saturn and Neptune, right? Not they weren't in Gemini, but Sun was in Cancer, Mercury, Leo, Leo, I think so. Anyway. I got vacation brain, right? So anyway, the Sun and Mercury both contacted Saturn and Neptune in Aries, right? And gave us some information around like what the Saturn Neptune conjunction might feel like through these different aspects of our lives and our psyches, right? And now it's Venus's turn to pay homage to these gods. So sextile is a supportive aspect. Actually a Venusian aspect, right? Which offers connection and the possibility of relationship. Sometimes we got to kind of like work at it to activate it. And so as Venus comes into this rather harmonious contact with Saturn, there's the opportunity to think about the structures of relationship and also our boundaries around relating. Saturn is a planet of both structures and limitations, and boundaries is a great limitation to have to work within. Right. And this is really helpful after the Venus-Uranus conjunction, which may have activated some feelings of dissatisfaction or a longing to break free or while out in the pursuit of our ideals and a desire for greater freedom. And so, as Venus sextile Saturn, we get a chance to think more practically about what we are doing and how we are relating. It helps us to develop boundaries around the ways that we are in connection with the world, right? And the ways that we are in relationship with others, and also the ways that we are relating to ourselves. And this helps to kind of consider how we structure our experience so that we can be more in alignment with our value system. This is also, and so that we can also maintain the freedoms that we desire over the long run. Saturn is a planet who is very focused on the long term, the big goal, right? And so the Saturn Venus contact really helps Saturn shows up and is like, okay, right, you want this freedom, you want more pleasure, you want more joy, you want relationships that feel better. Okay, what are we going to do about it? What are the action steps that we can take? How are you going to dedicate to this, right? How do we make this real in our lives, right? And something that is sustainable. So it's not just this like, oh, I need to break up with this person, or like, oh, I need to hook up with this person, or oh, I need to quit this job, right? I don't feel free. I need to do this thing. Saturn's like, okay, cool. Like, well, what happens next? Right. And I think this is a really important Saturn question, right? Because Saturn is a planet of consequences. And the contact of Venus and Saturn may create consequences or even show us the potential consequences of the actions that we are motivated to take as a result of the Venus-Uranus conjunction happening on Friday, which may cause us to kind of act impulsively. And Saturn does not do impulsive, right? And Saturn's in Aries, so there's like some kind of fraught and frothing and frantic energy, right? But Saturn really wants to like hold it down and think about, okay, like what are the next steps and what is this going to look like in the future? And if I do this, what's going to happen? Right. And this can be really helpful to remember as we are feeling that kind of electrical activation of the Venus Uranus conjunction on the 4th. It might feel like fireworks. You know what I'm saying? And as we move through the weekend, there's a reminder that actions have consequences. And consequences can be both good and bad, or skillful and unskillful, however you want to think about it. And, Saturn helps us to remember the reality principle, right? And that helps to like hold us down. Right? Saturn is the planet of reality. And it helps us to do the difficult work that we might not want to do. Saturn says if you want to make something real, you got to put in the work to make it happen. And as we get in touch with that love ideal through the Uranus and Venus conjunction, Saturn says, yeah, what are y'all willing to do, or what are you willing to commit to bring that ideal into actual physical reality, right? Saturn says, get to work and make it happen. It's also important to remember that when we experience the Uranus-Venus conjunction, right? Venus was in domicile in Taurus, has a lot of power, has their stuff around them. And now Venus is in totally new territory. They're out of their home. They're out of domicile. So they're bringing a different type of vibe to the party, right? Gemini is about breaking things down and looking at the multiplicity, right? And Saturn can help to provide some guardrails on the Gemini urge to keep unpacking and spreading out and bringing in new information. Saturn really asks us to consider where we actually want to put our energy, what we feel like is the most important thing to dedicate to in order to create more love and more joy in our lives. This can be really valuable, right? Because it prevents us from spreading our energy too thin. Venus and Gemini may find themselves being a social butterfly, being in communication and relationship with multiple different social groups and various people. And this can feel fun, but it also might be draining and kind of overwhelming. And Saturn can create a feeling of weight or pressure. And the multiple social commitments or situations or conversations may feel heavy as we move through the weekend, right? We might have to deal with some difficult topics. But the pressure that Saturn applies can help us to tune into, again, our core value system. And we can allow this transit to help us to become more attuned to what is the most important thing to us and what is actually aligned with these core values. This can be really helpful as we are flitting around from one social group to the next party to the next summer event, right? Listening to the summer jams, right? Gemini is all about holding this multiplicity so that we can find a place of integration and alchemical union. And Venus provides the compass point of values and joy that points the way to that integration place, right? And what it should feel like and what it can feel like. Saturn reminds us to stay on track and to really consider what we want to participate in our lived reality, and what we want to put our vital energy towards, and what we want to direct our love and creative energy towards. Saturn is kind of a curmudgeon, right? And is really into isolation and solitude, where Venus in Gemini is totally a social creature. So we may find ourselves wanting to step back a little bit, right? And take some space and reconsider what we actually want, right? Over the weekend, but also over sort of the long game. And just remember, my friends, there is always another party, and it's okay to take time for yourself and to tune in to what actually feels right for you, and to kind of reorient your trajectory, right? If that's what you feel like you need to do. And lastly, returning to the Venus-Uranus conjunction for just a moment, right? In a conjunction, the energy of two planets becomes combined and entangled, much like Uranus, right, and Gaia, just like all like knotted up together, right? And it can be really difficult to sort of separate or comb out those energies. So there may be real activations around the desires for freedom or the need to break out or break free from situations. And that energy can feel really intense, right, as we move into the weekend, because it's going to be building all week. And we might even feel kind of hijacked by the feelings of frustration or stagnation, right? But with a sextile, Venus sextile Saturn, right, the pull is much more gentle and it takes some work to kind of like activate it. This is also something to think about. We might need to like tune into that Saturn grounding, Saturn boundaries energy, right? But this gives us a chance to step back and really consider what actions, relationships, social engagements we want to participate in. So this can be a place of reassessing and consideration around the energy that comes up during Friday's Uranus Venus conjunction. Right? And it gives us a chance to ask questions around what is the next right action that can create more genuine connection, more love, and more joy in my life and in the world. Right? And what conversations around boundaries, right, do I need to have, or steps do I need to take to bring me more in line with my core value system? And last thing that I just want to mention is Saturn is all up in the birth of Aphrodite, the birth of Venus myth, because Saturn shows up on the scene and castrates Uranus and actually like takes the action to throw the junk into the water where Venus is born from the castration foam, right? And Saturn, right, bless him, is the element that creates space, right? Creates time, right? Invents space and time as he castrates Uranus and Uranus flies away. Also, kind of initiates an intergenerational trauma that the Greek pantheon lives out over and over and over again. But that's another story for another time. What I think is really important to consider here is Saturn's participation in this myth is what allows the space for things to grow and develop. Right. And with the Saturn sextile Venus, it creates that boundary between the sky and the earth that allows us to live and our lives to unfold in a time-based reality. And so as Saturn and Venus come into this sextile, right, as maybe like Uranus and Venus separate apart, right, or like creativity is born in the space between earth and sky, right? And we need that space and we need that time for things to develop and grow. And this is the thing that Saturn offers us, the ability to take space, right? The ability to begin new things that we can dedicate and commit to so that they can grow into reality in our, physical world. So just some things to consider as you are moving through the 4th of July weekend, right? Okay, last transit of the week, bringing us on home. Also on Sunday, July the 6th, right after Venus sextiles Saturn, Venus will come into a supportive sextile to Neptune, the planet of dreams and visions and fantasy. Neptune is retrograde in Aries, and this sextile will be occurring at 2 degrees and 10 arc minutes between the mutable air sign of Gemini, where Venus is starting their journey, and the cardinal fire sign of Aries, where Neptune is retreating or receding. So, coming off the Venus sextile to Saturn, Venus sort of repeats this supportive aspect with Neptune a little later in the day. Neptune is now retrograde, and Saturn and Neptune are creeping ever so slowly towards each other, and they will come within a mere 13 minutes of a conjunction over the next few weeks, which I think kind of like reaches their point around the 12th or 13th when Saturn stations retrograde. And it's interesting that we're getting all of these planetary contacts, this building conjunction of Saturn and Neptune, which I think is helping us to process the energy of this impending conjunction through various aspects of our lives and psyches. Now, Venus, planet of love, beauty, values, creativity, aesthetics, is getting their experience of this developing conjunction, and perhaps lending their blessing to this union as well. And so coming off the Saturn sextile to Venus, right? where we were thinking about how to set boundaries in order to be in better alignment with our value system, right? And how we can make what we want real. Now Venus comes into this supportive aspect with Neptune, who deals with illusion and fantasy and dreams, right? These aspects are kind of happening simultaneously, so we're going to be feeling them at the same time, right? And I think Venus in Gemini has the capacity to hold these kind of multiple feelings, right? So on one hand, we may find ourselves being pulled into a fantasy, right? And on the other hand, we may have a desire to hold on to what feels concrete and real. Sextiles, again, are supportive. So while these desires may feel at odds, there's really a great opportunity to practice integrating the dream with the reality. Right. And again, Carolyn Casey, one of my favorite astrologers, says that imagination or dream lays the tracks for the reality train. Right. And Gemini is all about this multiplicity and being able to hold multiple things. And Gemini toggles back and forth from one pole to the other, from the dream to the reality, dream, reality, dream, reality, right? Until it becomes a blur. Right. And hopefully, right, what I wish for all of you and myself as well, we find that kind of middle point, right? Between the dream and the reality, right? That place that feels just right, right? And so Sunday, we get this opportunity to sit with both the fantasy and reality in order to see the places where that Venn diagram overlaps. And y'all know I love a Venn diagram, right? And this overlap can help point the way forward and show us where we want to direct our vital energy to make our reality a little bit more like our dream or our ideal, or to bring that ideal more into our lived experience. This may be a great day to engage in creativity, right? And Venus is a creative archetype, and and born from the creative member of Uranus, the sky god. Right? And so it helps, creativity helps to activate the unconscious parts of our system, right? Ruled by Neptune. And it allows us to bring our visions into reality, into concrete form, which I think is spell work. I think this is magic, to bring the vision into symbol and into form. And this can be a really great way of processing the information that is arriving in our lives and in our systems, right? Venus is all about experiencing and engaging in beauty. Neptune helps us to get in touch with this vision, this dream, and the energy of inspiration by creating art or engaging in creativity. Right? And we can bring that Neptunian energy into our Saturnian reality. And through creative practice, we can do it in a very Venusian way. So this transit can also make us more sensitive and open to the beauty in the world and all around us. So drink it in over the weekend, my friends. And the Saturnian influence on this day helps us to stay grounded and can provide us with a nice counterbalance to the fantasy vibe that Neptune brings to the function. This is a great time to take in the things that we find beautiful and to really enjoy what feels good. We may find ourselves wanting to kind of retreat inward and go into our dreams and revelries and fantasies, which can help provide a sense of what we want in our lives and what we want our lives to look like and our experiences to feel like. And I think this can really be a great orientation or compass point. I think over the weekend is a great time to engage in poetry, dance, music, art, writing, or any other creative practice that gives form to your visions. It's a great way of setting intention for yourself, as well as for the dissolving and reforming of our world, both internal and external, which is occurring through the Saturn and Neptune conjunction, which is building. And at a time where the world is feeling quite unhinged, my friends, and there is this heavy influence of the forces of war and control and oppression, engaging in experiences of beauty and love can be a really revolutionary act. And this is not the like end all and be all, I had a great day and stop the war, right? But it is an important place of recognizing your values and the world that you want to create for yourselves and for others. Connecting in with empathy, kindness, care, connection, creativity, and love helps to orient you away from the fear and anxiety, which is what the forces of control feed on. And as we bring this element of compassion and beauty into our world in small and big ways, and share these elements of beauty and love with those around us, it creates and sort of builds this vital energy that can counteract the forces of oppression. It helps us to choose life, which counteracts the death cult that we're living in. And there's more work to be done for sure. There's always more work to be done, but we got to start somewhere. And all of these Venusian transits over the week, I think, provides a deep reminder that love is the law and that in the end, love saves the day. And so, thank you all very much for tuning in. I hope you all have a beautiful, pleasurable, enjoyable Venusian Revolution week in space. And yeah, I'll be back at you all next week. Same wizard time, same wizard channel. And yeah, until then, yeah, spread the love, my friends. And yeah, just to reiterate a couple announcements on what is it? July 5th and 6th, right? Right after the Venus Uranus conjunction, and on the day of Venus contacting Neptune and Saturn, the brilliant musician Mariee Siou will be playing two shows at Lost and Found Vintage in Nevada City, California. 227 Broad Street. Check it out. It's going to be a blast. I really wish I could be there. You can get tickets through Eventbrite. And yeah, give Lost and Found a follow. They are fantastic. They have excellent clothes. I got this jacket from them. Thank you very much, Jesse Brown and Micah D, for having such great taste and hooking your wizard up. Yeah, I encourage all y'all to check it out because vintage shopping is some Venusian shit right there, right? Looking good helps you to feel good, and that helps us to honor Venus. And you know, with the Venus-Uranus conjunction, maybe you find a whole new look at Lost and Found Vintage, 227 Broad Street, Nevada City, California. And you can top it off by checking out Mariee Siou playing on July 5th and July 6th. Go to both shows. She's fantastic. And congratulations, Mariee and Davis, on your wedding. Mazel tov, my friends. And then last and certainly not least, I'll be co-facilitating a week-long dreaming and mythology retreat in beautiful Epidavros, Greece, September 20th through 27th. We'll be talking about the water signs in the chart, the element of water in magic and mythology. We'll be visiting some sacred springs and talking about the mythologies associated with them. It's going to be a blast. I'm looking forward to it. I hope to see you there. You can check it out at themysteries.org. Just go to the retreats tab on Sarah Janes's website right there, and I'll put a link in the show notes. I'll put a link. There's a link in my bio, so you can always go talk to link in bio about that. And yeah, I don't know, look it up. It's going to be a lot of fun. We get to hang out. We get to talk about you know, mythology, dreams, magic, and anything else that's coming up. So yeah, I really hope to see you there. And I really appreciate you all being here. Thanks for tuning in. Thank you for your attention, because attention is a vital energy. And I think that where we put our attention makes a difference. And so yeah, thanks for sharing this time with me. And yeah, I hope that this is helpful for somebody. If you want to look at your chart or get a tarot reading, astrology reading, if you got questions, hit me up on the Instagram, Blind Stallion Space Wizard. You can find me on my website, campwizardcamp.com. I don't know, like, share, subscribe, blah, 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 blah. Send this to other people, or do what feels good. And just have a great week in space, my friends. And I'll see you all next time. Until then, be good to yourselves, be good to each other, and as always, may the force be with you. Bye now.